Pablo. Welcome to
Hello. That sounded like a very long introduction. And some parts I understand. Guitarist, frontman.
That is easy. Yeah, right. Frontman and guitarista and cantante, singer.
Cantante, yes, I understood that one.
And actually, Pablo doesn't sound like a Dutch name.
No, it doesn't. It's a Spanish name.
Okay.
My parents have very exotic tastes in names.
All right, that's why. So they're not Spanish, by the way.
No.
Okay.
No.
Your dad is of course Dutch, but I was wondering if your mother, is Spanish. That's why. Okay. So 5 albums in 4 years, and this is the 10th or 11th album, I guess. Sounds like a lot of inspiration. So you started very young. Some records, were recorded, I read, on the road. There's even a socially distanced record. But now let's talk about the new album, Love That and In Between, which is released this week on Friday on Mascot Records. So how this title sums up precisely this moment in time for you as a band, and what's in between?
What in between? Well, when I was writing the songs, I got a lot of inspiration from John Steinbeck books and some movies and series that I had seen. Like I had been watching Twin Peaks, and I got some inspiration from that. And when we were writing the songs, all of them seemed to be either about love or death, and this was I think a very interesting perspective, if you will, the combination of the two. So there's a couple of songs on the record that are about a love that can only exist after life, in the afterlife. So there's Will-O-the-Wisp, which is about this natural thing that can happen like in swamps. There can be like this swamp light in the distance, and a lot of people get like lured into their death by going there. But in this song, the Will-O-the-Wisp is also kind of like a magical woman of the swamps. And there's also a song, Rosita, which is a 16-minute long medley. It's like a combination of 7 or 8 songs, I guess. And also this main character, Rosita, which for me is like the most important character on the record. She's also on the cover, pictured on the cover.
Okay.
She's also like this goddess of love and death, and the protagonist of the story can only be with this woman if he dies. He can only be with her in his sleep, so he wants to stay asleep forever. And then so that's how we came up with the title Love, Death, and In Between.
Okay, so from psychedelic Southern rock warriors to emissaries of soul, as you stated, to present the band. Actually, the mood, the sound, the spirit, and the cover artwork, as you mentioned, they're a whole musical journey on a night train, of course. In the 70s, classic rock, blues, psychedelic, and Southern, just enough psychedelic and Southern, but this is very vintage stuff, very 70s. Yeah. It's very amazing and organic sounding. Did you maybe find somewhere, a kind of DeLorean time machine to travel back in time and be so authentic in what you do?
So I take that as a big compliment, and it's exactly what we were trying to achieve, because we all listen to music from the 60s and 70s mostly. Like most of the music I listen to is from that period. And but when you're making records like in this day and age, we were always building a bridge between that classic sound and now. Mm-hmm. And there came a point in which I was wondering, why do we always do that? I mean, we listen to this old music, I also call it old music, but if I think about it more, I think it's timeless music, because it has survived like the 50 or 60 years from the point it was written, because I'm listening to it now and I wasn't born in that time or whatever. So then I was wondering, why do we always want to build this bridge to now? Because I don't believe music should be hip. The only thing I believe is that music should be authentic and as timeless as possible. So, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I just don't. I think the highest thing you can achieve with your music is that you create this kind of universe in which you do your utmost best to create, the most beautiful things you can create, and if it's like stuff that it's inspired from the 50s or 60s or 70s, it shouldn't really matter. We make music for people who love this music.
Yeah.
And, if people want to hear like modern stuff, they should listen to other bands or artists. Because, we want to make this kind of music. And, I think that's the best thing you can do.
And I guess, your goal is accomplished because the record is stunning. And it's something, it's fresh, but it sounds like, coming directly in a time capsule from the 70s. And for this record, I heard that it all started in Memphis for you, for your inspiration during a kind of religious experience. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so in 2019, I went to Memphis just on a vacation, on a trip with my wife. And when we were in Memphis, we were looking up things to do. We had already visited the Stax Museum and the Sun Studios, of course.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that on Sunday morning, you could witness like a sermon by Al Green in his own church.
Yeah.
So the first thing I thought was, does Al Green have a church? So I looked up some of it, and then it turns out that in the late 70s, he became a very religious man. And in that time, he also started his own church. Yeah. You can go there because it's still around, and he's still around, of course. So that's what we did. On Sunday morning, we went to his church, and when we arrived there, we weren't sure if it was okay for us, two tourists, to enter this church. So we were kind of wandering around the building, and there was music going on inside, and it was so loud and intense. The whole building was vibrating. Yeah. So we walked around some, and then we were like, okay, fuck it, let's just go inside. And so then we went inside, and there was this band playing, a Hammond player, guitar player, drummer, a lot of people singing, and Al Green was fronting this band, and he was singing and shouting, and it was the most intense and some of the most beautiful music that I had ever heard. And it made me completely like reevaluate what's important in music, because I kind of knew for myself what I found important in music, but there and then it was extra like made clear to me that the most important thing about music is that you believe in what you do, and that you do it with the utmost conviction and conviction. Yeah, okay.
We got what you mean.
You know what I mean, right? And that you put all your heart and soul into it, and then it doesn't really matter if you play one chord or 1,000 chords. What's important is that energy that you can put into it, and that you can, connect with the people in the building through music. That's the most important thing, and it made me want to make music that does just that.
Yeah.
And that became a big inspiration for me, and I had always been listening to a lot of soul music and black music from the 50s and 60s. But yeah, for this record, I think Al Green was a big inspiration. That sermon was a big inspiration. And also guys like Little Richard was a big influence, and like the energy he can put into his performance. Yeah.
And in Memphis, did you go also in the other church, which is Graceland, of course, to visit Elvis' home, or you didn't?
No, I didn't go there.
Oh my God.
I wanted to visit, but I don't know. I didn't want it enough, I guess, because it was like, I don't know, it was like $60 entrance, and I was like, well, no, let's do that some other time. And if I had to choose between these two, I'm very glad I chose Al Green's church.
And there's always a lot of people there, so you prefer.
Yeah, it's very touristy.
Of experience. Okay, so as you stated, you wanted to achieve something very intense this time, and you recorded in a residential studio with vintage equipment, from what I heard, in the middle of the forests in northwestern France. Does choosing, the right place to record make a big difference in the final result? And also you kept the trio ensemble, but sometimes you've been joined by many people that we saw in the video and during the recordings. So tell us about it.
Yeah, I think also a very important aspect of this record, what we wanted to accomplish was we wanted to record everything live. So we wanted to capture the right energy of the songs, and the right energy for the songs was playing it live. Because, again, going back to that church, that was the whole thing about that church. People were interacting, speaking like a musical language, and we wanted to capture that on a record. So we had to find a studio that was big enough for all of us to play, because if there needed to be a tambourine in a song, we needed like an extra person we had to bring along to play the tambourine, and if we wanted horns, we had to have 3 horn players. So if all of us were playing together, it was 11 people. So we had to find a studio that was big enough, and we also wanted to record everything analog, because basically that's what we always do, because we also have our own studio that is also fully analog, but it's not big enough. And we just love that way of working, because it forces you to perform in the moment and to do it right, and you cannot fix stuff like you can on a computer. It has to be there, and also the sound I think is better than digital. So picking the right studio, I think for this, I have to say yes. I think that is important, because this place was very romantic. It was in the middle of nowhere, really, in Bretagne, in France, and it was such a beautiful environment. I had no phone connection there, and it was a very large building. We all slept there, and we all ate together, we all laughed together and drank together. So there was this very friendly and loving bubble that we resided in for like 2 weeks, I think.
2 weeks. So you stayed there 2 weeks, and you've done everything in 2 weeks?
Yeah, also the mixing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was 9 days of playing, I think, and 10 days of playing and 4 days of mixing.
Wow. That's quick. Fast.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess. It's,
As you mentioned, you recorded analog, and actually the deluxe edition, vinyl edition of That Love and In Between features this piece of analog tape of the original mix in it, which is so particular and exciting indeed. So that means that you really, really destroyed the original tape. Is that the truth?
Well, it's an alternative mix of a song.
Okay.
So the second mix we made, that is on the record, that tape is still intact. But the first mix we did is what's on this piece. Yeah.
Who had the idea? This is very strange. But it's vintage, by the way.
Yeah, we wanted some cool goodies to put in those deluxe edition box sets. What's cool about the vinyl version of this record is that what we did, we recorded to tape, and then we mixed with 3 or 4 people, so that was 6 or 8 hands like on the mixing desk, to another tape. That tape we sent to Switzerland, where somebody cut that tape into like a vinyl, a mall, like a lacquer.
Yes.
And that was with the mail again, like actual mail, sent to France again, where it was pressed on vinyl. So if you hear the record, there's no computer involved in the whole process. It's tape, vinyl.
Wow, that's great. Very 70s.
Yes.
And did you personally hand-number the deluxe edition of the record?
Yeah.
Wow. You did it, or you all did it?
The three of us. I numbered them all.
Okay.
Because they say I have the best handwriting in the band.
That's cool. And the fact of not having an official bass player was an artistic choice, or it simply happened and that didn't scare you, to go on like that? Because in some songs, actually there's the bass, and for example, in Heart Stopping kind of show, the video features a bassist. So
yeah, I think most of our songs on the album and on our other albums have bass guitar in them. But on previous album, I mostly play bass guitar as an overdub. But for this album, because we wanted to do it live, we asked Levi Viss, a friend of ours, to play the bass.
Yeah.
So I think, like, if I listen to a record, I like bass guitar. I like hearing bass guitar. But when we play live with the three of us, it's really nice to be able to be a power trio and to. So Robin plays the bass with his left hand live.
Yeah.
Which is, it's also what the Doors did, and there's some. And it wasn't an artistic choice. Like, at first, it was just, we started jamming with the three of us 15, 16 years ago, and it worked. And then we were like, oh, this is awesome, let's play live. And then we played live, and then people asked us, why don't you have a bass player? And we would like make up a story why we didn't have a bass player. But the only reason was we didn't have a bass player. That's the reason for us not having a bass player.
And you took the best out of not having a bass player, okay?
Yeah.
Why do you think there's such, a big desire, such a willing to make and to listen to some, fresh but retro rock, this revival, scene in the last 10 years? And do you feel like a part of a revival scene, or do you stand out?
I don't know. I think, rock and roll was like invented like in the 50s, and then people started playing with rock and roll, and people started like inventing new ways of playing rock and roll, like on a guitar, bass guitar, and drums and keys. And I think somewhere at the end of the 60s, people had like perfected this form of making music. And after that, there came all these different kinds of genres and different kinds of dogmas that all these genres presented. But I think if you're just talking about making music together with a group of people, like instrumentalists, I think what people achieved in the late 60s is like the summum, like the greatest thing that we have accomplished, like in music. So I don't think it's crazy that people go back to that time and draw like a lot of inspiration for it. I mean, it wasn't, I'm not saying it's the best music ever. I mean, I think it is, but obviously a lot of people think differently of this. But yeah, I think it is a time where a lot of music comes from. A lot of music was invented in that time that we still go back to now.
Which new bands do you feel are on the same wavelength as DEWOLFF?
Which new bands? Well, there's some bands in the Netherlands that we really like and that we feel we have a very strong like musical connection with, like the Dawn Brothers, I don't know if you know them, but they're pretty amazing. And the Grand East and some other bands, but in like the mainstream, or like worldwide, I don't really know. There are bands, I'm sure, but
bands, like The Answer or Dirty Honey, do you feel have a connection with you guys?
I think if we talk with those guys, we have a lot to talk about, because I think they draw inspiration from a lot of the same music, but I think they're also like building a bridge between then and now, so they make like a 21st century version of that 60s and 70s stuff, and I don't have a desire to do that anymore. I just want to play the music that I love, and if people don't listen to it because they think it's like retro or old, I don't care anymore.
Okay.
So,
but they miss something for sure.
I also think we draw inspiration from also music from before that. So a lot of like the stuff that Led Zeppelin came from, like the old blues stuff, and also the old rhythm and blues stuff.
Robert Johnson and
B.B. King and also Chuck Berry and those kinds of guys. Yeah, Otis Rush.
And if you have to name a guitarist and or a lead vocalist that you consider your personal hero, not just an influence, even something more, because when I saw you, with my eyes and ears, you, Pablo, remind me a lot about a good mix, between Duane Allman and Jimmy Page. Is that correct?
Wow, that's a great compliment. Jimmy Page is my all-time favorite guitar player. I think, especially Led Zeppelin 1, 2, 3, and 4. After that, not so much, but especially the early period. Yeah. And Duane Allman, I also really love. I love his playing.
Okay, so I got it. All right.
Yes, you got it. Yeah.
In your own country, I heard you're second only to the Foo Fighters in sales and popularity. So you are prophets in your own land. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, we're pretty well known here, and things are going pretty great. Okay. But we're not as big as the Foo Fighters. No, not by a long shot. Because, the thing is, when our album comes out, it might hit like number 1 or number 2 or 3, which is all great. But, just that first week. After that, we go right back to the bottom somewhere. I don't know. And the Foo Fighters, they might be like on number 2, but they're on number 2 for like months when the record comes out. So that's the difference, I guess.
So you're two brothers in the band. Your brother is the drummer, Luca, and you're on guitar, just like the Van Halen brothers. True. And they were Dutch, as you are. So the band started in 2007. But what age were you two guys, two brothers, when you started playing? You must have been very, very young.
Yeah, Luca was 13 and I was 16.
Wow. And the first EP came out pretty much soon after.
Yeah, it came out in 2008, I think. Yeah. So then I was 17 and Luca was 14.
Wow, that's a big motivation, and you learn quick.
Yeah, and I think also in 2009 or 10, we played the Pink Pop Festival, which is like one of the two biggest festivals in Holland. And it has a long history, like it started, I think, 60 years ago or something. And Luca was the youngest person, I think, who was ever on stage there.
Wow. And you had clear in your mind what you wanted to do since the beginning?
Yeah, that's cool when you start playing very young. Like I started playing when I was 9, And I was so into it that, you know, when you're a kid, you think you can become a rock star when you grow up, right? So I believed that, and I was so naive, but it actually worked out. So yeah, I had my mind made up from the beginning.
I saw you play live in Milan, opening for the Black Crowes, and I was hooked, you know, at the first riff. I didn't know about the band, I must say, and it was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Magnetic energy you had. A lot of people was astonished that night by you guys. How do, you know, the concert dimension is complementary to the recordings into your special universe? I mean, as you said, you are a trio, but in the studio, you use a lot of tracks and a lot of people playing with you. So do you keep in mind, you know, how playing live is an essential part of your world when you are in the studio and when you compose the songs? Or you're free, you keep your mind free and you completely go with the flow?
Yeah, I kind of see those two worlds, well, not separate, but a little separate. So when we're in the studio, I just want to make and record the best possible song in the best possible, you know, way with the right arrangements and stuff like that. And then when we go live, you know, songs change, and some for the better, and some songs we discover like, you know, this song doesn't translate well into like a live setting, and then we might not play it anymore, which can be a shame. But on the other hand, I think it's a very different thing live and in the studio. So we can make up for not having so many musicians live with energy and with, you know, excitement, and also we do a lot of improvisation. So that's also like a dimension that gets added to the music.
And that's very 70s as well.
Yeah.
As an approach, yeah. So playing a support tour for the Black Crowes has really been a lifelong dream coming true for you guys, as I also read on your Instagram. And I read also that your mom was expecting you, Pablo, when she attended to a Black Crowes concert in 1991. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is true. They played the Pink Pop Festival, the festival I just talked about.
Yeah.
They played it in 91, I think. And they played it again when my mom was expecting Luca.
Oh, Luca, not you. Okay.
No, both of us. So first in 91 and then in 94 again.
Wow. But how mystical was that tour experience for you, since, you know, you were at the show. Your very first show was very particular, let's say, with your mom. And how was, of course, the atmosphere backstage with the Black Crowes, since this was a dream for you coming true?
Well, I was very nervous about meeting them at first. So, and the first show, in order to get to like the catering area, we had to walk through their backstage area. So I walked through their backstage area and being like all scared, like, oh my God, I'm gonna run into Chris or Rich Robinson. So then at one point I did run into Chris Robinson, but unexpectedly. And he asked me something funny. He asked me like, how do they call people from Tilburg? Because we were playing Tilburg the next day. And it was like this joke. And I was like, I don't know, man. I should, because he said like, there's like a funny name for people from Tilburg, and I want to know. So I said like, I have a friend in Tilburg, I can ask him. So I asked this friend, and then I learned a word. It was kuikenzeiken. So then I walked up to Chris again later that evening. I said like, kuikenzeiken. And he was like, yeah, that's the word. And then we had this really funny connection, I think, which was really cool. And I was very relieved to learn that he was a really chill and cool guy. Yeah. And some nights we didn't meet them at all. We didn't see them at all, or just some of the band, and they were all like really nice. But at this almost the last show, I think we had an after party in Chris's backstage room. Oh. And that was fucking mind blowing. That was so cool. It was very magical to visit a dressing room after party with one of my greatest heroes.
Right. So the atmosphere was like relaxed and everything was cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Did they ever tell you why they picked you for the tour?
Well, I know why they picked us for the tour. It's a funny story. So I'm friends kind of with the ex-guitarist for the Black Crowes, Luther Dickinson.
Okay.
He played on their 2008 album, I think. No, I don't know exactly what year it was, but there's 2 albums that they released that I also have listened to a lot. And somehow I got to meet the guitar player on those records. And he came to our studio like a year ago, I think now. No, half a year ago. And I showed him some of our new record, and he was like super excited about it. And then he told me, dude, you got to send this stuff to me, and I will make sure that Chris and Rich hear about it. And I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing if you could do that. And so he did that through the, he made sure our music ended up in the Black Crowes camp. And then they liked it so much, they started playing it on the bus. And then when they heard that we were for already 2 years trying to get on the tour, they said like, oh, this is a great band. Let's have those guys with us. So we only heard like 2 months before.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great story. And what about Toto? That is a different kind of band. I mean, okay, they're old style as well, but that's a different kind of genre. How was touring with them?
Oh, that was really cool as well. Toto happened because we have the same booking agent in Germany. It's a little less romantic, but it was nevertheless it was really cool because, I think the Toto guys and we share a lot of the same inspirations. It's just their music comes out differently than ours. But if you talk to Steve Lukather about Jimmy Page, like he's wild about Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
That was really cool. We also had some really cool stories about like session player life in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. And last but not least, what about Armani? Sugar Moon was used in a commercial spot featuring Ryan Reynolds, if I'm correct. So
yeah. That also happened. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. How that connection happened?
We have this. No, we don't have. We have this publishing agent, and they pitched our song for that commercial, and then it was chosen. And when we heard about it, we went wild. We were like, "Oh my God, this is fucking crazy!" But then for a long, long time, it was unclear if it really was going to happen. But what we did hear was that Ryan Reynolds had to give his say about whether he wanted this song or not. So, then he gave the thumbs up. So he heard our music and he liked it apparently. And but we only knew for sure that it was in the commercial when the commercial popped up on YouTube.
All right.
So that was really weird. So all of a sudden it was there, and we were like, okay, so I guess this is really happening.
Okay, so upcoming tour is next for you guys. It's starting this week, the day actually the record comes out. And what's next to that? Will you come to Italy? Do you have more dates, for the whole year? Or you're just planning, day by day?
I kind of live day by day, but I do know that we will definitely gonna have more dates towards the end of the year, and I really hope that we're coming to Italy. And I think we should, because we did the Milano show and it went really well, and I think if we play there now, there's definitely some people that might come, which would be great. And we have played in Italy in the past, and that was always a blast. That was always really cool.
And your keyboard player, Robin, is called Pizzo. Is he Italian some way? Italian origins? No. Okay.
It's an Italian word, right?
Yeah, no, it sounds Italian, Piso, so I thought that maybe, but it's not. Okay.
No, unfortunately, but it goes back to like Roman era stuff. So I don't know, maybe he does have some form of Italian roots.
We will ask him next time. Okay, last question. In the light of the last 16 years that you've been doing this, how do you imagine DEWOLFF in another 10 years? And do you think that guy, that child that started is the same guy as today or some way different?
Well, in many ways, I am the same as I was back then, because I'm still like, back then I just started doing, we started DEWOLFF just out of a sheer love for playing music and playing this kind of music. And that's still the case. Only like this music has changed, over the years, of course. Like it started out like as purely like Cream, Led Zeppelin, The Doors, Pink Floyd inspired stuff, and it turned into kind of like its own thing. And we, of course, we have all these different influences that came on board later. So musically, it's definitely not the same as it was in the beginning. But I approach it the same way. It just, inspiration comes and it has to go somewhere. So you create music, and there's always, if we're inspired and if we write something that we like, there's always a place for that in DEWOLFF, which I find a very cool thing. So it's a very organic thing, and I think it will continue to be just that. I hope we're going to make many different kinds of albums. I think the next album is probably going to be a reaction to this album, so it's probably going to be way more stripped down, maybe just the three of us.
All right.
I hope we can record an album in the United States, maybe produced by Chris Robinson. That would be awesome. Yes, and I'm very looking forward to all these adventures.
And DEWOLFF, Love That, and In Between is Record of the Week here at Linea Rock. And I know that...
Wow!
Yeah, so that means that we put one song every night for the whole week. And we are conducting the people to the release, which is very exciting. And I know that Marco has a question for you from the studio about one song on the record.
Yes, I'm curious. Pablo, I'm curious about a long song called Rosita in a new album, more than 16 minutes long. It's like a jam.
Yes.
It's like a jam session. Can you talk about it?
Well, it started out, I had two parts. I had two ideas for songs, but I couldn't really like complete them because they only work like as small fragments, like 1-2 minutes or something. And then I thought, oh, maybe I can combine these two. And there was like this tempo change, and I was, this actually works. And then I got this idea of doing maybe like a medley of songs that don't exist yet. So not a real medley, but this kind of idea. Just like those old rock and roll guys did, like in the 50s when they were playing live, they would play all these songs like in a row as one big show. And I got, inspiration again from, the Al Green Church, but also this Leon Russell record called Leon Live, where he does like this medley of all these rock and roll songs. I wanted to do something like that, and I wanted it to be kind of like a religious experience. So I don't know, I presented the two songs together to Luca and Robin, and they were like, oh, this is awesome. And we just started toying with this idea, and we tried some things, and it grew very organically, and we recorded something that was like 12 minutes, I think. And then at home I thought, oh wait, there has to be another part between these two parts. And then the story was very much based on it was inspired by Twin Peaks. So it starts out kind of like as a high school love story, like the sweet love story, and then turns out that this Rosita figure, she's like a woman who only comes to the protagonist in his dreams, And yeah, so then the thing I said earlier, and it grows out into this kind of like mythical story of epic proportions about love, death, and in between. And yeah, for me, that's the key song of the record. That's definitely, for me, that's the most important song of the record.
So Rosita is a fictional figure, as you said, and she's on the cover of the record. But is that Rosita of the record somewhere inspired by a real person in your life? Maybe Pete, maybe your wife, I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely my wife. Like if I had to like think of how beautiful and how perfect this Rosita was, then I definitely drew inspiration from the love I have for my wife.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we're closing this interview with Counterfeit, which is a song, of course, on the record, which is a particular title, but you are very real, actually. You're not counterfeit, but do you want to introduce this song for us, to present it to our Linea Rockers, to our listeners?
Yes, of course. The next song is Counterfeit Love. It's a song about fake love, like counterfeit money, but with emotions. And it's a nice little rocker.
Okay, thanks so much, Pablo. And I
thank you very much.
You very soon in person, and you've been welcome at Linea Rock. And all the best for the tour, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being part of this show, and I felt very welcome. So thank you for that.
That's great. Okay, thanks so much. Ciao, Pablo.
Thank you. Ciao.